This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. It's actually kind of overcast and dim out right now, but I'm sure it'll brighten up later. Hopefully. Yes, so here we are once again on a Sunday morning and talk about a random subject that I came up with just last night. Although it's something that I've been curious about, at least for the last couple of days. I wasn't quite sure what I'd do. I'll get into the story of how I got to this point in a moment. But first, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Noah Sencio. Good morning to you. Kiever Dam, good morning to you. And thank you, Kiever Dam, as always, for providing the links to the GoFundMes for our friends Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Arriaga, James Colley, and Rhonda. You guys can take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can, share those out on social media. That would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. Matthew James, good morning to you. Mike R., good morning. Derek LaRue, good morning to you. Good morning to you, Derek LaRue. Thank you so much, Derek, for your continued support and generosity. Very much appreciated. Hope you're having a good Sunday, and I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks again. Somnamdil Nation, good morning. Hammer, good morning. Hammerman, Hammerman. Whenever there's a crime, some crooks are going to do time. Now, anybody who has any idea what I just recited, in part and probably badly, you are a child of the 90s. That's all I can say. And you watched some very, very niche cartoons back in the day. JB, good morning to you. What is SOGIE? Well, I guess we'll hopefully find out. Datura Jones, good morning. Somnamnul Nation, good morning. Vader35, good morning. Resolute Germ, good morning. Kiro Soldier, good morning. Fun Time Bats, good morning. Urcule Di Stefano, good morning. Zan Wild, good morning. Your Ridiculous Lunatic, good morning. Ryanar, good morning. The Blakester, good morning. Shadowclaw, good morning. Anybody else? A Scanner Daftly, good morning. Robert Pincus, good morning to you. Tyr Alexander, The Scourge, good morning. TC Lachance, good morning. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to try here. I'm going to do my best. Parasaurolophus. Parasaurolophus. I tried. And unlike what Yoda might say, trying is worth something. But good morning to you. Sabian 187, good morning. Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. And I think that's everybody I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the... Oh, and then all of a sudden, bold sign, good morning. All right, so there's a little bit of a backstory to this one before I get into it. In the summer of 2020, in the summer of love, I made it a point at that time to follow certain news sites in certain cities where things were happening. Interesting things were happening. And a couple of those cities were San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. Seattle, of course, was the site of the Chaz/Chop anarchy zone, which was just an absolute stain on our nation for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, however long it lasted. And I never stopped following those news sites after that because I thought, if things are going to be happening, it might be interesting to see where they're coming from, and usually from these three cities on the West Coast. Probably a good indicator of what's going on. Anyway, that's just the reason why I came across this article in the first place, because I got a little ping about it. I think it was on Twitter or something. And I started reading this article. Now, the version of the article you see on the screen right now is not the way the article looks at present. So if you click on the link that I put in the description below, it's going to be different because they have heavily revised this article since the first time I read it. And I think I know why. I even made a tweet about it at the time because I said, after I read the article, I said, and I tagged the author in this tweet, I said something to the effect of, I don't understand why this is filed under news because it sure reads like editorial propaganda. So this is the version that was originally posted. This is from the Wayback Machine. So I'm going to start reading portions of this, not the whole article, because that's not really the point, but just to give you a taste, so to speak, of what I was encountering the first time I read it. And then we'll get into the main point of it. So this is from, when was this posted? Just the other day, May 1st. Okay, the headline is Washington's new inclusive education law goes into effect in June. Here's what to know. Okay. Educators need to start working on new curricula to teach students about the contributions, perspectives, and histories of all people, including the stories of LGBTQ plus Washingtonians. I don't know, and this is where my brain always hits a roadblock. Like, okay, first off, unless their personal lives were somehow integral to their significance in history, why would you know this information? Of what purpose is it to relay it in a class, and especially to children? You know, because at least half of the population that has to be working under this law now is, you know, kindergarten through 6th grade or something. But anyway, this new inclusive learning law takes effect June 6th and includes all districts, even those that have opposed it. While Senate Bill 5462 was still in committee, several school boards, including the Linden School District Board, passed resolutions against its passage. The main argument comes from school board members was that they want to retain local control of what their students are learning, and that this law further erodes that. But those who lobbied for this bill to pass argued that it follows the reality of the world we live in and does not encourage any type of lifestyle or behavior. Well, then why not say this is the, you know, legislation to encourage the education of the sexual orientations of historical figures or something? I mean, they call it the new inclusive learning law, I guess, but then why are you focusing on, you know, one obviously politically minded collection of letters if it's just about all people? I don't know. Let's see. The lessons must be age appropriate. What does that mean? I don't know. And then all school districts, charter schools, and state tribal schools will have to incorporate those new curricula by October 1st, 2025. Okay, so a lot of this read to me like sort of just, this is just relaying, this is the voice of the state coming in. It didn't really feel like it was there wasn't any pushback. There wasn't a whole lot of the other side thinks this because of this, that, or the other. Anyway, that's all beside the point. And if you really want to see what a whole bunch of revisions look like, click on the link in the description below and just compare it, and then go back to the Wayback Machine version when it first came out, because they improved it somewhat, but it's amazing to me that this was their first copy. Anyway, when I got down to the bottom of the article, something stuck out to me, and my eyes locked onto it before I read what it was about. I just saw this word here, SOGIE. That is SOGIE inclusive. I just saw this and I was like, what is a SOGIE? And then I looked up one line and it said, provided, and by the way, for reference, this says, there's also been plenty of research, doesn't say what research, that has identified strategies to support LGBTQ plus and all students, and all, well, if it's all students, then why do you need to differentiate? But anyway, to be safe and thrive at school. These strategies include, and point number 3 is, provide information and support related to sexual orientation and gender identity or expression, SOGIE, including curricula that is SOGIE inclusive. Now, a couple of things occurred to me when I read this. I thought, I've never heard of SOGIE before. That's the first one. Second thing is, if there's an acronym for this, there has to be an association for this. There has to be some sort of nonprofit. There has to be some sort of, you know, center for, et cetera. I just thought you don't have an acronym unless there's a group behind it. Nobody would take the time to make an acronym like that and make it sound like this unless there was something, some infrastructure behind it. And so, with all that as preamble, let me then stop sharing this screen, start sharing this screen, and then do this, and then for the sake of my own brand to do that. Here we go. I found a video, a lecture or something, whatever you want to call it, from the National SOGIE Center. There's a whole center for this, apparently. 1 second before I move on to that. JB, thank you so much. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Oh, okay, so it's one of those type things. JFC, here we go again. Yeah. So my question is, and has been for a while now. And now that it's apparently going to be required and law, at least in Washington state, I don't know about other states, that you have to integrate these subjects and subject matters into education to children, because it's about all districts and all schools. So it's going to be from kindergarten through 6th grade and onward up through 12th grade, etc. I was curious, how do you do this? How would you have that conversation about these subjects with a student? And so I found this video that's going to instruct us on this, discussing SOGIE. They left the E off for some reason. SOGIE with children and youth. Now, this may be an absolute cringe fest. I don't know, but I'm too curious not to find out. All right, Washington State, apparently, or at least the author of that article, is suggesting, or, that this is a beneficial thing, that integrating whatever this is into curricula, into the days and hours and weeks of teaching children reading, writing, arithmetic, we also have to have SOGIE somewhere in there. So this presentation lasts about an hour. I'm only going to go for about an hour and a half in real time unless there is some compelling reason to go forward, or if by chance I decide to do a part 2 at some point. So that's the setup. So here we go. This is discussing SOGIE with children and youth. Are you ready? Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to our learning community on safe and effective LGBTQ plus data collection.
Data collection? Uh-oh, maybe I got the wrong presentation. Well, I guess we're already headed in the direction we're headed.
This learning community is facilitated by the National SOGIE Center of Innovations Institute at the University of Connecticut School of Social Work.
The University of Connecticut School of Social Work, okay.
So a little bit of more about me.
Okay.
My name is Antonia Barba. As you'll see, we're going to share a little bit more beyond just our typical kind of professional bios.
Because we need to know more about you beyond your qualifications. Because
I do have a master's degree in social work from Fordham University.
Okay, good, I suppose.
I use she, her, hers pronoun.
Doesn't matter.
I identify as cisgender,
Doesn't matter.
bisexual, and queer.
None of that matters.
I also identify as a multi-ethnic person. I am both white and Latina.
Meaningless.
And I hold white skin privilege.
Oh, you do? Do you hold? How many hands do you need to hold white skin privilege? I wonder.
I'm based in the New York City area. I live on Nipmuc, Wappinger, and Muncie Lenape lands.
You do? So you're occupying somebody else's territory? Why? Doesn't that make you a colonizer?
But I was born and raised in California.
Oh, so you really took over somebody else's territory. Okay.
I've been here in New York now for over 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And again, just the reason why we're sharing a little bit more about ourselves is because we're here to talk about identity, right? And so if we're talking about identity,
then we should just say our names. It's just, I tell you what, just in your mind's eye, just cover up her name here. Just imagine that her name isn't actually on this slide. Right. And then imagine that the next 2 entries there aren't there. The only things that you see are she, hers, hers, multi-ethnic, based in New York, born and raised in California. What does any of that say about the individuality of this person? If you just put those lines up on a board and nothing else, would you be able to attach this person's name to those things with any certainty? No. So what does any of this have to do with identity?
in building our comfort and confidence in asking questions, in receiving questions, and initiating these conversations. It's really important, I think, for us to demonstrate that we know about our identities. We reflected on them, right? We have some ease and faculty in terms of speaking about those things and naming them with you here today.
Okay, yes. Well, I suppose at least I should know that you are an expert in the subject matter you're going to be presenting. But nothing that you have on your curriculum vitae there tells me that. Right? You have a trauma-informed care consultant and founder of Inform Transform. and you have a Master's of Social Work from Fordham University. That's the only qualification on that entire list. That's the only thing on there that qualifies you to say anything about a particular subject, at least by credentials. So social work. Everything else is entirely anecdotal and subjective to your individual experience. So, but maybe I'm just talking outside my realm here.
So I'll turn it over to Johnny for your introduction.
Whoa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having me. Before I do my introductions, I'm wondering if people are not having a hard time posting, since not a single person has posted an introduction yet, and a couple of people are raising their hands. So I don't know if the tech people can check on that.
I really wish, if this was a live stream, I wish I had been there for it.
While that's happening, again, hi, I'm Johnny Cole. As mentioned, my day job, I'm the Director of Equity and Student Support. So I oversee the DEI work in a suburban district outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh boy, a DEI officer. My favorite.
I also do some consulting and teach graduate level courses with ideas. I am pursuing my PhD, just finishing up my coursework now, and the next year will be dissertation. And my pronouns are he, him, his. I am a cisgendered gay man.
None of that is relevant to anything, but okay.
And I am also biracial. My mother immigrated to this country from Indonesia and Holland. She was Dutch Indonesian, and so my first generation American born in my family as well. Currently based.
What about your father? No mention. Okay.
Near Boston, Massachusetts, on Nipmuc, Massachusetts, and Pawtucket land.
Oh.
And born and raised. Antonia and I actually went to middle school and high school together. I've been in Boston for about 30 years. And I think it's important to note that I think this is the first time since 1995 that Antonia and I presented. We presented in our senior English class the difference between daytime and nighttime soaps. So our presentation today will be a little more important than that one was. So.
Okay. So we're all family here. Okay. All right.
Thanks for having us. It looks like the chat is working now. Excellent.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone.
By the way, I didn't do any editing. I didn't check this for if they were going to spend some time doing some promotional stuff for their organization, or if there's any fluff or whatever is sometimes happens. So if we start running into that, like if they go into some, let's tell you about the calendar of events coming up, I'm going to skip over that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this is as it was presented.
So one of the things we want to start with, this is a topic, discussing sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression with children is a hot topic right now. I mean, probably it looks like from a lot of the places that people are zooming in from, you're facing certainly different cultural values, but certainly even different legislative decrees and laws that are dictating what you can and can't talk about in your practice, I'm sure.
Yeah, actually talking about these subjects and subject matters with children has always been a quote unquote hot topic, or a iffy area if you are not the parents of those children in the first place. So yes.
So what we wanted to take a moment and just give folks a chance to also in the chat identify what are some of the myths and fears that you have, in your role. What makes it difficult to
Okay, so for those of you listening at home, there's a card up right now. It says, myths and fears. In your role, whatever that is, what makes it difficult to talk about SOGIE with children, youth, and caregivers? I don't know, because it's often neither relevant, and admittedly, I don't think this is dealing with students, right? I mean, even though our speaker here is apparently in charge of DEI in some school district or something, this seems to be more, in a broad sense, how do you speak to children? But this is the closest thing I could find to where it might actually be talking about a school or school-aged children. But either way, what are fears about it? Well, maybe because it's inappropriate, not your business, that depending on the age of the child and or student, whatever we're talking about, it might be too much to try to put into their minds at that time and place in their development. I mean, I try to think of like an equivalent kind of scenario, right? And not because it's necessarily immoral or something, but just because there are certain concepts that are probably just a waste of time to try to impart upon children, like quantum mechanics, I've been having a lot of quantum mechanic debates lately because of my review or critique, let's say, of the Three Body Problem show. Would you spend the time to try to instruct third graders on quantum mechanics and expect their minds to be able to grasp most of the concepts? And I'm not talking about like some sort of high level thing, but you actually just try to explain to them quantum mechanics. Or is that something that probably is more appropriate for a more developed mind later on down the line after they've had a bunch more education in the basics of math before you just jump into quantum mechanics? Same thing with this kind of subject matter. At the point in their development, both socially and personally and biologically and mentally, is this really something that needs to be talked to children? Is it your business to do so? And what are you pushing in the course of it? I mean, normalizing gender confusion in children, to me, seems a bit, to put it mildly, insidious. But let's see what our speakers have to say.
Talk about SOGIE with children, youth, and caregivers. While you're thinking about that, this is a big thing that's come up in the district that I live in, and a lot of districts around Massachusetts, and in a fairly progressive state, where we actually do have laws protecting the rights of gender expansive youth and the right to have curriculum that mirrors them in our schools.
Okay, well, that at least is somewhat relevant to the article I read from Washington State.
We're facing a lot of pushback, particularly in elementary level, about that curriculum.
What is the pushback? And just like with any other TEDx or presentation, a big indicator of whether or not we're being dealt with in good faith is whether or not the opposition will be given some kind of voice or acknowledgement. Why are people pushing back? What are their concerns? Whether you agree with them or not, whether you think they are too far afield or not, just give voice to the opposition and then give your case in defense. That's what should happen, I'm hoping.
So take a moment and name some of those myths and fears. What worries do you have? What makes it challenging or difficult? And perhaps that's part of why you're here as well.
Okay. How long is this going to go on?
So it looks like we've got some, it's sometimes easier to talk to youth than it is to talk to their family.
Sometimes it's easier to talk to youth than to their family. Okay.
I feel that even as a 46-year-old man and with two teenagers, my children, and I do this for a living, and my children are very well versed in this world.
I'm sure they are, because they are your children and that is your choice. What if someone else is not comfortable with you relaying that to their children? Do they not have an argument?
Particularly more than the adults involved.
Yeah.
We would love to also just get a couple of voices in here. So we'd love to hear from maybe two voices who maybe can say a little bit more about what they're writing in the chat or a response to this prompt here. So if we can get at least two people to just raise their hand, and then our tech folks will help us unmute you so that you can share and we can hear your voice.
Okay, so this wasn't a very well-structured introduction. Okay, I don't know how long this is going to go on. I might have to skip around until I get to their next info card or something, because I don't know if I want to listen to their technical difficulties for the next 5 minutes or whatever.
Antonia and I, again, as native Californians, we talk a lot and we talk fast, so love to break that up a little bit with some other voices. So who would like to say a little bit more
Oh man, I wish I was in on this.
about what makes it difficult to talk to children about SOGIE, children, youth, and caregivers?
So far, I'm hearing it's what's difficult to talk to youth about SOGIE, their parents. That's what I'm hearing. That's the gist that I'm getting.
Hi, I'm attending from Vermont.
Okay.
This is Wabanaki lands, actually.
Well, then why are you there? Unless your last name is Wabanaki, I guess.
And I would say we work with a diverse population of youth, many of them identifying as part of the LGBTQIA plus community.
Well, given the umbrella nature of that entire litany of letters, I guess it's easier to say that everybody's something. All right.
And the most difficult thing is not just their caregivers, but some of the schools honoring their chosen name and their pronouns.
The most difficult thing is the adults in their lives. Uh-huh.
And not dead naming them. And that is something that comes up often for our youth.
So the adults in their lives are not willing to back up what may be just a passing phase or something that goes against what biological or observable reality about themselves. Okay.
So I think explaining and talking with the local school faculty and staff about why it's so important to honor what the youth identify as.
Uh-huh. And of course, if I'm telling everybody that I'm Superman, well, then I'm going to go, jump off this building, Mom, because I'm Superman. So obviously I can't deny my child their chosen identity and pathway in life. So I'll just, let him go. Obviously he's going to, jump off that roof and fly away. So sure.
Thanks, Heather. That's really, really helpful. We will definitely touch on that as part of our presentation today.
Okay.
Looks like Derek will be our second person before we move on. Derek.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Derek.
I think I have unmuted myself.
This is not Derek LaRue, mind you. No. Well, I mean, unless somehow it is. No, I don't think so.
So calling in from Windsor, Ontario.
Uh-huh.
This is Anishinaabe territory.
Then what are you doing there, unless your last name is Anishinaabe?
The Huron-Wendat peoples.
Oh, all types of peoples there. Are you a member of them?
And I do a lot of work directly with youth and a member of the community. And it's not the conversations that I have so much difficulty, but supporting those who are caregivers or service providers doing that kind of work.
Caregivers or service providers. That's okay. Maybe I don't have the context of this presentation. Are caregivers also considered parents, or do parents fall under the category of caregivers? Is that just sort of shorthand for, obviously shorthand for anybody in charge of the youth, as it were, but do parents fall under there, or are we talking about something else? That's a legitimate confusion on my part.
In the way of like education consultation. And what I've heard from a lot of people is like, they totally accept and ready to affirm, but there's a lot of fear about making mistakes.
Well, that's usually part and parcel with raising a child in the first place, because there's no correct guidebook for it that I'm aware of.
Saying the wrong thing, not knowing what to say, or kind of like unintentionally causing harm.
Yeah, like maybe affirming a child's declaration of reality that goes against biology or just reality and just going along with it. I know my Superman analogy is maybe a bit extreme, but at the same time, it wouldn't be the first time that a child has gotten into their mind that they are something, can do something, embody something that is just not real. And under that belief, under that inspiration, decide to do something that could put their safety at risk. Does a parent, caregiver, whatever, do they not have the responsibility to step in and provide guidance to the child or to protect that child even from themselves if they're making a demonstrable error in judgment? And is it the place of some outside party to dictate to such parents and or caregivers how they raise their child or the child under their care?
Or making things work.
I mean, outside of breaking the law, this is the let me be clear. I'm not talking about like a parent should be allowed to do whatever they want with their kid and nobody can question it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about within the normal course of events, as it were. Because this is okay. Let me back up a little bit because I did cut him off.
But there's a lot of fear about making mistakes, saying the wrong thing, not knowing what to say, or kind of like unintentionally causing harm, or making things worse or bad. So I know that there's a lot of people that want to do the work or do the support or certainly have those conversations, but don't necessarily know the language, don't feel comfortable or confident or competent to be able to do so.
Are you talking about the outside parties? Are you talking about the actual parents? Some specificity would be appreciated.
That is excellent, Derek. Thanks for naming that. Something, again, that I think we will address as part of our presentation today. So one of the reasons that we ask folks to name the myths and fears is also when we come together in a space, a learning space like this together, 60 plus of us, we need to help hold each other accountable. And I have found in these spaces that naming some of our worries will help us not hit those worries together, even though that some of them will help happen outside of this space. So,
okay, accountability for what?
One of the things that's important for us to also consider are the guidelines and norms that are associated with this work. Some of these we think will help mitigate the impacts of those worries that many of you are listing in the chat and that we just heard from two of our colleagues. So the first, there we have 4 norms. And
4 norms. Oh, so like separate episodes of Cheers. Okay. 4 norms. Here we go.
These are true for our learning spaces together, and these might be things that you bring back to your organizations when you're discussing this work. First is being curious. So what that means is naming it. So if we use terminology that you're not sure, please put it in the chat. Say, hey, can you say a little bit more about X, Y, and Z?
Well, that's, I mean, almost exactly the motivation for me doing the show today. I saw a term I hadn't seen before, saw it was an acronym for something, and thought to myself, there's got to be an association behind it if there's an acronym. But what does it mean exactly, and how does it apply to educating children? So, hey, you know, I'm following along with the guidelines and the tips and everything. Thank you so much, JB. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's very generous of you. These peoples give me South Park vibes. The giant Catholic spider episode, the scene where all the priests are sitting around complaining. It is a subject that is much cringe when you start thinking about the possibilities here. And just, again, I tried to think back before I started the show today. I tried to think back in my own grade school education. And I am reaching a long way back now. It's true. I'm reaching back a long way. But I tried to think of any significant, lessons that I received from my teachers, or projects that we did, or anything dealing with history or individuals and such on such. And I tried to think, okay, is there any point at which I can think during the course of any of these projects, any of these presentations, any of these lessons, where the intimate knowledge of any particular individual's love life, or how you could even determine what their personal thoughts on their gender were, any of that stuff. If you somehow knew any of that, just as I indicated at the top of the show when our speakers are going over their various elements, what would any of that have done to enhance or improve my understanding of history or of individuals? I mean, I could see some arguments, right? Like Oscar Wilde. Okay, Oscar Wilde and his lifestyle and his relationships are very particular to the biography of Oscar Wilde. And you could draw a connection between his writings and the themes therein and so on with his personal life, with his romantic life, with his lifestyle, as contrasted by society and culture at the time that he lived. You could make that argument because that was kind of part and parcel with his personality and his work. But can you make that same argument for every historical figure or, public figure in the modern day or otherwise? And I don't know. And then, but not only that, even if you could make that argument in some way and try to make it part of the education, how do you explain these concepts to young children? Why would you explain these concepts to young children? That's the part where my brain kind of goes like, what? And again, is it the place of public school teachers to delve into the particulars of sexual orientation, sexual lifestyle, etc., with children in an educational venue? Why? Why is it your business? Why is it your responsibility? Is what I asked sort of the general entity that is modern education, or public education, or even private education. Because, I mean, private schools, National Association for Independent Schools, I've done more than a few videos on their theories on things. Anyway, okay, so anyway, the guidelines and norms. First one, be curious, name it, say, okay to say ouch, oops, and pause. Pay attention to process as much as product.
Also, naming it is if we or someone in this space says something that lands on you in a really negative way, to name that. I have found it really helpful in these spaces as an almost 50-year-old person to say ouch, oops, and pause using that sort of elementary language.
You know, that's kind of unsettling in a way. But also, okay, so we all need to be fragile eggs. And we need to, you know, oh, you said something that made me feel bad. Well, I'm almost 50 years old, but I still talk like a child. Well, okay, well, what am I? And that's me doing that. I'm going to be 45 in a few days, so ugh.
Sometimes takes the sting out of it. Those mistakes that we just heard Derek talking about, it takes the sting out of it, and that we can sort of focus on what we said and how we can make it right.
And you can dither around word choice and waste time rather than doing something productive. And tending to individual feelings on specific words. Okay.
Also paying attention to process as much as product. So we're going to share a lot of information with you over the next hour.
Good.
The tribal land acknowledgement is an example.
The tribal land acknowledgement is an example. Okay. What does the tribal land acknowledgement have to do with anything? How does that beneficial to me other than make everybody who brings it up effectively a hypocrite?
Not the first time that you heard of it. If it was, we certainly wanted you to think about the product, the content, the land acknowledgement that we were doing, but also the process. How did it feel to be hearing about that?
Did they cut the land acknowledgement out? Or, I mean, they each talked about, like, you know, was that the land acknowledgement? Was that it? Just saying? It feels like it was much. Usually, land acknowledgements are much longer ceremonies in these things, and not just sort of like, by the way, this is where I live, and these are the people whose land it used to be, and I'm still here. Anyway.
Product, the content, the land acknowledgement that we were doing, but also the process. How did it feel to be hearing about that? To pause for a moment and think about the indigenous people who have shepherded this land for centuries.
Until you became an extended colonizer of that land, sure, I can think about that all day, and it would change nothing.
Our second guideline that we think is important for this work is holding on to multiple realities. We all see things from our different vantage points, and
yeah, but there are certain things that are demonstrably true, aren't there?
Those different vantage points also exist within a context of power and privilege.
Oh, they do. Power and privilege. Oh. Are we talking about racism?
So if Antonia and I are experiencing something together and we have different perspectives, as a cisgendered man, I have a little more power and privilege.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. So you acknowledge patriarchy. You are part of the patriarchy. Oh, what do you do to divest yourself of this sin, might I ask?
And she does as a woman.
Oh, yeah, obviously she has less power as a woman. Right. And that's how we should look at the world. I see a woman. Oh, she has less power just because she's a woman. That's a progressive way of looking at the world.
And so it's important for me to recognize that those, although we have different perspectives and different multiple realities, they don't always exist on the same plane.
Right. You are superior to her by just the nature of what you are. I understand. I'm right there with you. You believe in the gender binary and the differential in power dynamics between the two genders. Okay. All right.
We need to practice our both and thinking. Two things can be true at the same time.
Not necessarily. It depends on what you're talking about.
Even if they seem to oppose each other. We'll explore that a little bit more later on. Using and instead of but is really great in this work. I know that a lot of folks have thought about this in the recent years. Using but negates what comes before it. I found it really helpful even in my personal life. You know, when my husband's doing the dishes. It's great that you did the dishes, but you left water all over the counter.
Well, you know, if you need to correct someone or to show them the contrast between something true and something that's untrue or an exception, it is correct. Wait, so the conversation you would have with your husband is, it's great that you did the dishes and that you left water all over the counter? So you'd be encouraging him to leave water all over the counter? Wait a second. It's like, honey, I'm glad it's very good of you to have fed the dogs, and I'm glad you left their cage open so they could run a rickshaw all over the entire neighborhood and destroy things. What?
Instead, I can say, and next time, could you please clean up the counter?
What? And could you, it's this, okay. The magic word of and changes nothing.
Takes the sting out a little bit.
Oh, it takes the sting out a little bit. Oh, well, let's pressure pad everything for everybody. We don't want these stings. We just want gentle nudges everywhere.
And then intent is not as important as impact usually. I think it's important that we acknowledge that the impact that we have through our words and actions on other people, particularly when we're talking about identity, is usually the most important thing. You know.
No. Hold on. Intent is not as important as impact. So if I have absolutely no intention of doing something and somebody decides to take it in a way that I obviously did not mean it and turn it around into an insult, whose responsibility is that? Whose responsibility is the impact? And you can't say intent is not as important as impact usually. Well, if there's a gray area there, then wouldn't it be better to extend the benefit of the doubt unless you knew for a fact that someone was trying to shoot to wound, so to speak? Okay, yeah. My interpretation of things is more important than the person who did the thing or their intention or their meaning, because I can take whatever they did and turn it into anything I want. Okay.
You know, the impact of what we say. Sometimes that's not always true, particularly when we're talking about that power privilege context, that if I'm in a position of historical marginalization and I'm sharing my experiences to someone who has never really thought about that context.
Historical marginalization. You are not part of a monolith. You are you. If you want to talk about your personal experiences, fine, but attaching yourself to some other people from history just because you share some, passing element, I don't know that I'm supposed to take you seriously at that point.
That might create some really negative thinking and some negative thoughts and feelings in the person that's in the dominant position. In that case, I would say that impact is not as important as intention. So that's
okay. So there are certain people who can get away with it because of their historical associations, but people who don't have those historical associations, or at least not the ones you're willing to acknowledge, they have the responsibility of taking responsibility for your interpretation of what they said. Okay.
That's like one of the few caveats we like to add on there.
Right. So you get a pass because of quote unquote what you are, and other people don't get a pass because of what they are. Is that, I'm being reminded of certain things now, like, I don't know, like something, I don't know, drinking fountains or something.
Our next guideline and norm is stay the course. So, whatever it is that you maybe are feeling that, that sense that someone named, I think, Derek, about, I don't want to say or do the wrong thing. This isn't something that I feel like I can do really well.
If you have any doubt, continue forward. Stay the course. Like, I'm not sure I'm doing this correctly. I'm not sure if I know what it is I'm supposed to say. I don't know that I'm not inflicting more harm in the process. Just keep at it. Just keep going. It's fine. It's fine. Just you gotta stay the course. Iceberg right ahead.
Yet, right? We want to invite folks to reframe this as something you can't, not that you can't do it, but you just don't have the skills yet. You're in the process of acquiring them.
So as a complete amateur, just stumble on forward through people's personal lives and talking to children about subject matter that might not be appropriate. It's fine. If you have no idea what you're doing, just don't give up.
We also want to name, right, that no one person is the expert in all of these things. It kind of takes the pressure off of Johnny and myself too, to feel like we don't have to know all of the things, right? But we pooled our collective expertise, and everybody here who's sharing space and learning about this together is also, together we are pooling our collective expertise, and that's really how this work happens.
So I shouldn't take anything that you or your co-hosts say with any seriousness. I should have no faith whatsoever, despite your credentials and declarations otherwise. Now, admittedly, regardless of what the subject matter is, I'm always going to be a little bit skeptical of someone who comes up on a stage and comports themselves to be an expert in something, because I don't know. I don't know where they got their degree. I don't know what they're going to say, etc. Actions speak louder than words, so to speak. So to speak. But in this instance, you have no idea what you're talking about, but you have guidelines and norms up on the card here. Should I not believe those are the guidelines and norms? What?
Stays very process oriented. We want to remind folks that, again, everyone here is learning. Johnny and I learned in the process of working together to put together this presentation. We're going to be learning, from each other today in this space. And we also want to invite folks to be willing and open to trying things on. So we may be offering things that feel really outside of kind of your typical way of practicing. I know as I've approached this work, I've learned a lot of things that seem to contradict some of what I learned about in social work school, for example, right?
So does that mean that your teachers in social work school were wrong? They weren't experts? Or someone told you something contradictory and you should just believe it? We haven't even gotten to the subject matter of the actual lesson yet, and I'm not quite sure that the mechanisms for thinking about it make any sense. So, okay.
Some of the kind of basic information or ways that I was trained as I entered the field. But,
You want to give us some of those contradictions? You want to give us a compare and contrast between what you were told versus what you've been told elsewise or learned otherwise? I mean, that could be educational or at least informative. Give us some example,s dare I hope.
An open mind. If something doesn't sit quite right with you, we really want to invite you to just, to try it on, to sit with it, see how it feels, be open to the possibility before just immediately dismissing it.
That is in part why I'm here. This is why I take a look at subject matter that I might otherwise avoid just out of reflex, because I want to at least understand what's going on. So when I see an acronym for something I'd never seen before, that's why I'm here. So I'm trying to learn. You're not making it easy because you keep contradicting yourself. And instead of but, intent is less important than impact, usually. Nobody's an expert on anything, but keep plowing forward, even if you don't know what you're doing.
And finally, we want to invite folks to speak from your experiences. So using I statements, right? Not speaking on behalf of a collective
not speaking on behalf of a collective. But didn't we just hear that if I'm speaking on behalf of a collective and historical marginalization, then I have the right to speak about my intent and not my impact? As a cisgendered man, he has more power than... Okay.
On behalf of a group of people, but speaking for yourself from your own perspective. No attributions, meaning, we don't know all of whom is in the space. Some of you might work together, know each other. There might be folks with all different kinds of connections. And so,
are people listening in the future who are not attached to this kind of work at all and are just observers of it? That'd be me. Oh, but I don't want to associate myself with a collective. I'm just scribe. Looking at this thing as scribe. That's it. With my own perspectives and experiences, or lack thereof, which is why I'm here to try to learn something.
So we certainly want to invite folks to ask questions and offer their expertise, but we want to be mindful of certainly not sharing any kind of identifying information so that we can maintain safety and confidentiality.
Okay, you know what? I'm skipping over. I'm trying to find a card or something where I actually talk language. The language of inclusion. This presentation should not be considered all-inclusive and is only up to date as of June of 2023. Okay, this is almost a year old now. Okay, can we get to the actual... All right, here we go. Definitions. I'm sorry for skipping ahead. Maybe I'm missing some good stuff here, some golden quotes, but I'm just getting bored and I want to get into the proverbial meat of the matter. We've already got an hour into this and I don't feel like we've gotten anywhere.
With terminology. All right. And just to, offer some, again, level setting so that we're all kind of have a shared understanding of the things that we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
I also want to share that the language that I'm sharing with you is language that we intentionally chose that we could share with children, with folks of young ages, kind of bite-sized nuggets of information.
Great. You've spent 15 minutes only getting to the definitions of your terms in an hour-long presentation. Walking on eggshells much?
And I will say one of the things I think that comes up in terms of like fears and worries, often with parents and caregivers around.
Oh, parents! I mean, maybe they mentioned earlier in the stuff that I skipped over. I think that might be the first time I've heard the word parents this entire thing.
Having conversations about sexual orientation and gender identity with kids is that we're going to be talking about sex.
Yeah, yeah, with someone else's children. And it's not just about human reproduction cycles and things for the sake of, safe sex and so on. No, it's something much more detailed than that, isn't it?
And we're not, right?
Well, no, you are. You are going to be talking... LGBTQIA+. How do you cover any of those things without talking about sex? What? You're not. How do you describe or explain sexual orientation without talking about sex? What?
Often with parents and caregivers around having conversations about sexual orientation and gender identity with kids is that we're going to be talking about sex. And we're not, right? We can describe sexual orientation in this really simple way, right? This is a phrase that describes who someone loves or is attracted to, right? A nice kind of bite-sized way to share that. Gender.
Is that it? Is that really it? Then why do you need all this? Yeah, see, here's the thing. Then you get into gender identity. Then come on. Really? I wouldn't love to see it, but a demonstration, let's say, without any children actually present. I'd like to see someone give their version of a presentation describing this. At the same time, the question still stands. Of what educational value is this in the classroom? And I understand that this presentation seems to be going kind of in a general sense, social workers or otherwise, but we also have somebody who's representing themselves as a teacher or as an educator. And they mentioned students at least once or twice. So why? That's my big question. Why do you need to discuss this with children? Why?
Gender identity, right? This phrase describes how someone feels. They may feel like a boy, like a girl.
Their feelings about biological reality are irrelevant in the classroom. That's my stance. I'm happy to take on an opposing viewpoint. Of what responsibility is it of a public school teacher to discuss the feelings of a student about their gender in the classroom? What?
Like both or like neither. But everyone has a gender identity.
You said, but you broke the rule. How dare you?
Right? We can actually only know another person's gender identity for sure if they tell us.
It is not okay. Of what responsibility is that of yours to investigate or interrogate of a child? Under what circumstances in the classroom, in social work? I mean, social work, that's just such a broad category. It could be anything, but I'm just talking, and regardless of what the presentation's talking about, I'm just asking in relation to the article I read. Why? The big question, why? Why does this need to be discussed or interrogated amongst children?
Right? Important things for everyone to know and respect.
It is not important for everyone to know or respect. It's not. It's none of your business.
And gender expression. So people express themselves in many different ways, such as their clothes, their hairstyles.
Yeah, and kids oftentimes express themselves in the ways that their parents dress them or take them to get a haircut. Uh-huh.
Sometimes people think that certain things go with certain genders.
Certain things do go with certain genders. Can you name one?
But again, you really can't guess someone's gender by how they look, right?
More often than not, you can. You know, unless someone is exceedingly lucky in their bone structure and or exceedingly talented in makeup, or has done amazing physical work on themselves in some way, shape, or form, more often than not, you can.
Right? Again, the only way that we know is if they tell us.
That's not how reality works. That's not how observable reality works, I'm afraid to say.
So another thing that's important for us to have a good frame for this work, sort of guiding principles for the work that Antonia and I do in our fields, is typical SOGIE development. And so
typical SOGIE development. Okay, so there's a baseline. There's a standard for this. Okay, and at the bottom of the frame here, even though they haven't put up the information yet, American Psychological Association 2015, Guidelines for Psychological Practice with Transgender and Gender Non-Conforming People. The text is very small. American Psychologists, okay, a bunch of, okay, so these are their references. Okay, let's say 1986 or 1966? What? Okay.
So I know, I am constantly faced in my work with the question like, the kids are too young to talk about this stuff, even with the language Antonia just used.
Yeah. Okay. What do you say in response to that?
And that is not true according to the research. So
no. What do the parents of the children say? If I were a parent and I had somebody from the outside who was not part of my family, who I did not know, who was just a teacher, and they started telling me what is or is not appropriate in the realm of sexual identity to speak to my child about, I don't care what your research says. There's research that probably says the opposite. Who should be in charge of that particular realm? Are you a teacher? Do you teach math? Do you teach history? Do you teach geography? Great. The inner workings of my child's psyche are not your realm. Or don't you understand that?
So we're just going to walk through quickly the typical development. So by 2 years old, typically children become conscious of physical characteristics between boys and girls, right?
Okay. Does that equate to them making a value judgment on the deeper nuances of gender psychology?
They're aware of their different body parts, and I think many of us in 2023 support the use of the proper terminology for those parts.
Oh, you do? Oh, well, thanks, because what does that even, you support the proper terminology for those parts? What does that have to do with anything? What?
By the time they get to 3 years old, they easily label themselves as typically a boy or a girl.
Typically? Yeah, because there are two options. It's typical because it's just reality.
What I think is important to note on this level is that when children express gender identity that is consistent with the gender they were assigned at birth,
if ever there was the biggest red flag where I immediately stopped taking someone seriously, it's when they use the phrase, not ironically, gender assigned at birth. If there is a edge of the cliff of credibility when it comes to conversations such as these, that's the most clearly defined one. So when a 3-year-old is aware of and acknowledges the difference between boys and girls and understands that they are one or the other, and they are acknowledging the biological reality of themselves, then what?
No one bats an eye, right? It's if a boy, someone who's born with a penis and assigned boy at birth, says, I like dinosaurs and I like to wear blue and I want to play soccer at 3 years old, no one says, you know what, you're too young to know that. They support it. It's only when that person who was assigned boy at birth says, you know what, I actually feel like a girl. I feel like I want to do girl things. I want to express myself through this gender identity, that we start, that society questions that.
Society might question, where is that coming from? Who is talking to this child? Where are they getting information that might tend to push them towards a perspective that goes against observable reality or their own habits? Yeah, no, I can see how that might be. If somebody starts acting in a way that is completely contrary to their previous behavior out of the blue and in such a drastic way as to defy logic, yeah, I might have some questions about that, especially if I'm their parent, especially if they're a 3-year-old. What are you? Thank you again, JB. You're very generous today. I very, very much appreciate it. I know something about this. Kids, when they are super young, won't draw arms or legs on their drawings. As they get old, they will add them, then stuff like hair, becoming more detailed. Bro, what is this guy on about? I don't know, but in the context of his slides so far, I'm supposed to just believe a 3-year-old when they say something about reality that is demonstrably untrue, not question it. I go back to the Mom, I'm Superman now, I'm going to go jump off the roof and fly scenario. Okay. So okay, we're getting into the weeds here now. We're only at 3 years old, and he wants us to believe in the wisdom of underdeveloped children about the intricacies of gender identity. Okay.
So by 4 years old, most children have a stable sense of their gender identity, and they may explore and experiment with different kinds of play, toys, dress up, and expression. And this is
yeah, they may do that. And if they decide at one point, like if a boy decides that he's going to wear mommy's dress and prance around in mommy's dress, does that make the boy now a girl? Or do I just let the kid play and get through whatever phase they're going through or whatever and not see it as a sign that they're making a declaration about something as nuanced and complex as gender identity? An informed declaration, mind you, an informed declaration of such things. 4 years old. Okay.
So it's very normal for children of all gender identities to explore what it means to push the boundaries of those identities, essentially.
Two. There are two genders. I mean, you are using the plural there, but when you say all, there's two. Both. You mean the word both. You guys talk about but versus and? Okay, there's male and female. There's no but in between there. Well, I mean, anyway.
By 5 and 6, and this is the time that they typically get to public school in my field of work.
Yeah, that's around first grade, or kindergarten, depending.
Children become aware of the rules and are sensitive to explicit and implicit messages about what is accepted, rewarded, and valued.
Yes, they're becoming more aware of the society they exist in and inside voices, right? And stay out of someone's personal space, etc. Yeah, there are rules to behavior in a civilized society. And
this is why one of the reasons why in my district where I work, we have lessons at the kindergarten and first grade level to try to counteract some of this. And so it's very simple. You know, we have
Whoa, counteract what? What rules are you talking about? What are you telling 5 and 6-year-olds?
Ask kids, what are some boy things? What are some girl things? The soccer ends up in the boy box often. And we ask kids to raise their hand. How many of you like soccer? How many of you don't? And just to show the kids, like, isn't it funny that we all thought that this was a boy thing, and there are boys in here who don't like soccer, and there are girls in here who do. And they come away thinking like, yeah, that is funny. Let's not do that anymore. Let's say that these are kids things rather than boys and girl things.
Is that the extent of your conditioning of children to do away with the idea of gender norms and roles? Just wondering. Holy cow. Faustonia, thank you so much as well. Everybody's so generous today. Hi, Ascribe. Jimho. Okay. With a $16,000 student in public school spending versus $12,000 per student in private school spending, my bet is part of that 4K difference is right here. This has public schooling written all over it, even pre-K. Well, I believe our speaker right now, our current speaker, said that he is employee of or an officer within a public school district in, was it Connecticut, Massachusetts? Connecticut? I forget now. Anyway, on the East Coast. So, yeah. But here's the thing. It really doesn't matter if it's public or private school at this point. As I said before, and as keeps popping up, the National Association of Independent Schools. These are private schools that are not technically accountable under Title VI because they don't receive federal funding, privately funded and so on. They're pushing, or many of them, I can't say all, but many of the most high profile ones, and especially the NAIS as an association, pushes this kind of teaching as well. It's both public and private now in many cases. So yeah, the extra money, yeah, it's a con job. A lot of this stuff is a con. When he started talking about DEI and everything else and equity and inclusion and so on, I get very suspicious. What are the positive outcomes in academic development for pushing this particular brand of curriculum? And just like with DEI, I want somebody to show me. I want somebody to show me by drawing a line directly between instituting a SOGIE curriculum and an improvement in academic success. And I want to know exactly what parts of academic success this curriculum touches upon to achieve those quote unquote better outcomes. If you can't draw a line between instituting this stuff into a curriculum, whether it's public or private school, and a benefit to academic outcome, I do not see the purpose of it as a ROI, right? Just looking at it as a plain bottom line business argument. What is the return on investment for taking time out of the school day or inserting into school lessons any of this? Be very pragmatic about it. I want the cold equations. I want somebody to show me that this is inherently beneficial. Even setting aside the moral angle, which shouldn't be set aside, but just as a matter of just basic calculus here. And I'm an English major, not a math major, so if I use calculus in the wrong context here, well, sue me. Anyway. All right. Anyway, we're at 5 and 6-year-olds, and part of what you do at your school is to give doubt to the idea of differences between genders. With gentle examples like soccer. Oh, it's just soccer. Anything else that you do with 5 and 6-year-olds to confuse them about differences between gender?
By the time they get to middle elementary, by 7 years old, most children have gender constancy, meaning they are pretty consistent in how they express themselves. They may go underground about gender distress if they identify something different than what everyone else expects them to be.
7-year-olds. 7-year-olds. It's not getting any better, okay? They may go underground. Oh, okay, so is it your responsibility to dig up the truth as a public school teacher? Are you going to assume that any 7-year-old that you decide is iffy on their gender expression or something, or gender constancy, by asking them about what they think about soccer? Is it then your role to, try to dredge up the truth out of them? What are you as an educator supposed to do with these steps? I mean, this assumption of knowledge and comprehension year by year in a child's life. What does this have to do with your job?
And they do that to avoid distressing or displeasing the adults around them. And that's one of the big themes that we'll carry here, is that the adults, families in particular, have a significant impact on the risk factors and outcomes for children who are gender expansive.
And who's determining that they are gender expansive? You? I mean, does any teacher have that power and responsibility to decide or to, again, discover that a child is quote unquote gender expansive? And so the enemy of this, of course, are the parents. All right, so you're setting up an adversarial structure here between the parents, the student, and the wise and insightful public school teacher. Okay.
And then finally, on average, most children develop their first crush and become aware of their attractions to others by age 10.
And of what business is this of yours?
That's true for all children, whether they are heterosexual or gay or queer or bisexual or any of the other options that people can identify as.
Again, what business is that of yours?
Again, we'll share these resources. The research to support this is listed on the slide as well, and there's certainly more out there on the internet. But it's important to get a sense of that. What is undergirding why we're doing this work.
I don't know what is undergirding why you're doing quote unquote this work. And if the parent of a child says, none of this is your business, just teach my kids the facts of the world, etc., you're going to lean on the research, as you said. Anybody who says otherwise will know there's research on that. Okay.
So we want to take a moment, again, knowing that there are a lot of challenges that we may experience within the organization systems, the families, the communities that we work with. I think it's really important to stay connected to your values and understand and know why this work is so important and why we are committed to doing this work.
Okay, well, I mean, I asked earlier, why? Why is this being taught? Why does this need to be part of a general education for small children? I mean, so far, for the sake of this presentation, we're going from 2 to 10 years old. All right, 2 to 10. So, like 1st through 5th graders in kindergarten. So K through 5, K through 6-ish. Elementary school age children. Why?
And so we want to give folks a moment. This is an interactive activity. So,
oh, good. I love interactive activities. Depends on who it's with.
We're going to give folks a minute to just reflect and think about, what are the values that bring you to this work? What is it that drives us socially to be here? What is it that amidst all of the, probably, I'm imagining, busyness of your lives and your schedules caused you to, make the time and energy to be here with us today?
Well, rampant curiosity on my part. Perhaps even morbid curiosity. And every time I say morbid curiosity, I'm at least sidewise advertising for a true crime channel here on YouTube. Go check out Morbid Curiosity. Johnny. Morbid Curiosity. Good stuff.
Also acknowledging that may be because someone told you that you needed to be here, right?
Yeah, you're required to attend this teaching. Oh, okay.
But we just wanted to invite folks, take a minute just to reflect on why this work is important to you, what drove you to be here. Don't type anything just yet. Hold on to that. What I'm going to ask folks to do, don't hit enter. Go ahead and type your reason into the chat, and then we're going to do a little chat waterfall.
A chat waterfall? Oh, I don't know what that is. Is that something that I can do on my channel? Ooh, what's a chat waterfall?
So hold, and then I'll give everyone about a minute to reflect and write. And when I say enter, we'd love to see everybody, go ahead and click their message into the chat for us. So just take a moment.
Okay. Guys, I want to try a chat waterfall. Okay. I want to try a chat waterfall. So here's the thing. All right. I want you, don't hit enter yet. Don't hit it. Everybody who's listening, don't hit enter yet. I just want you to type into the chat window. I want you to type in your favorite kind of cute animal, right? The kind of animal you find the cutest. All right. Now don't hit enter. Don't hit enter. All right. I'm going to give it a second here. All right. So I want you to type into the chat thing the kind of animal, like the kind of baby animal you find the cutest. All right. So think of your favorite animal, the favorite animal that you find the cutest, and the little babies. So you think that babies are the cutest. Obviously, when they grow up into full-grown adults, sometimes they don't become so cute anymore. But okay, the cutest kind of baby animal. Just type that into the chat. And when I say go, hit enter. All right. And I want everybody to hit enter at the same time. So type in your favorite animal, hover your finger over the enter key, and on 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hit enter. Everybody hit enter. I want to see a chat waterfall. I want to see a chat waterfall of all your favorite animals right now. I want to see if this works. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Cocker Spaniel, kitten, platypus, groundhog, chipmunks, toy poodle, dwarf hamster, buzzard, cats, a fluffy bunny that has been flattened by a semi on the side of the Advocatus. What is wrong? Ducklings, kittens, quokka, Highland cows. Yeah, there you go. And they're always cute forever. That's true. Highland cows they're crazy. All right. We had a chat waterfall. Well, a chat trickle. One of these days when I have on the TEDx or something, when I do a TED Excellence, I'll do a chat waterfall then. Not quite sure yet. Cat. Ryan R is very basic, just cat. Okay, that's fair enough. All right. Anyway. Any time now, guys. Yeah.
We're going to share some of the statistics that some of you may be aware of. I see some of that in the chat.
Okay.
These are some of the stats out there around youth who struggle with SOGIE in particular.
Youth who struggle with SOGIE in particular. Well, I admittedly, I'm not much of a young man anymore, relatively speaking, but I'm struggling with SOGIE right now.
So the first is that 45% of LGBTQ youth, if you want to hit the space there, seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year.
I hate to tell you this, but a large portion of youth in general, at one point or another, may consider that. I did when I was a teenager. I hit a really low point, and the thought occurred. So I don't think it has anything specifically to do with gender or sexual orientation. I think a lot of people just hit a low at some point, emotionally or otherwise, especially when you're a teenager and you've got all these new changes happening to your body and society and your life and your outlook and your realization and self-awareness and everything else. Sometimes you get overwhelmed. Sometimes things go badly. Sometimes you don't know how to regulate your emotions as well as you might when you're an adult. So what does any of that have to do with just being a teenager?
Significantly higher than their non-LGBTQ peers.
Really? Based on what?
Counterparts. So the risk factors there are significant.
So it's dangerous. It's more dangerous to your well-being. Okay, so So having gender confusion is more dangerous to someone's well-being, and part of what you do is to muddy the waters on gender role. Okay.
Second data point here, 75% of those youth reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety.
It's kids and teenagers. Did LGBTQ youth also experience an addiction to oxygen by any chance? I just wondering. I mean, was that a significant factor that you looked at all?
That's 3 out of 4, and that's pretty significant. Again.
And teenagers writ large just don't.
And much higher than their counterparts.
So you say.
And the last data point here, 58% of those youth reported experiencing symptoms of depression.
Yes. So if you and also LGBTQ, that's more than one demographic. I don't know if you understand that that's more than one demographic and covers a whole wide swath of individuals. It's always talked. This is the one I don't understand. Like lesbian, gay, bisexual. Okay, those are sexual orientations. Transgender is not a sexual orientation. Queer is such a amorphous term that doesn't really mean anything anymore. And yet you're collecting all this giant umbrella of people and you're calling it like one block. You said before you don't want individuals speaking for entire demographics and that kind of thing. And yet you're willing to group a whole bunch of different kinds of people together and say that this is a truth. Okay.
And so, this data right here, these data right here are certainly part of the driving factor for my why.
Really abstracts about personal emotional experiences that could apply to anybody at any time, and especially in the developmental stages of kids and teenagers. Okay. So you're saving lives is what you're thinking here. Is that it?
Our local data in Lexington, where I work, we collect data on this in our youth risk and behavior survey every other year. Very similar data here. And what we have seen is through some conscious efforts to create a more inclusive environment in our schools and our work with caregivers in particular, that those numbers have come down over the years, which is really, really important.
Oh, okay. So you're saving lives, you think? Okay. By talking to, I mean, you put up the chart, 3-year-olds through 10-year-olds about these subjects. Okay.
If you can certainly look at more data out there. GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educator Network.
Oh, GLSEN. Yeah, that came up in a previous live stream. Yeah, GLSEN, which obviously by its acronym and meaning has no particular ideological bent to it at all, of course.
Has some really great data on LGBTQ youth.
I'm sure it does, since it's in the name. No reason to doubt or to question the biases thereof at all.
It's broken down by state, so you can actually look up your individual state and see what the statistics are there.
According to GLSEN.
A little bit more, adding to kind of the why it's so important to initiate these conversations. Is because we don't know what's going on with kids until we ask, right?
And why is it your business to ask them about these things? You talk about your why, okay? Why is this your business?
We can't get the full picture. And so, I saw a lot of folks in their whys talking about, wanting kids and families to be safe, to, be empowered, to be who they are.
Then leave them alone to be who they are. What business is it of yours?
To be alive, right?
Okay, yeah, sure.
And so it's really important in order to move toward those goals to know what are the best practices? What
are the best practices for someone else's children when you're a public school teacher? To teach. What else?
The research tell us what are the most effective ways to support children, keep them safe and healthy and well. And so we know through the research and the work of the Family Acceptance Project.
The Family Acceptance Project. That doesn't sound at all biased.
That family support plays a huge role in contributing to health risks, well-being of LGBTQ plus youth, and that rejecting behaviors, family rejection, can really increase the risks.
Whoa. Okay, maybe this is just my English major talking, but the card on the screen now says, research from the Family Acceptance Project shows that families play a critical role in contributing to serious health risks and promoting well-being for LGBTQ young people. Okay, so, and this is, I'm going to, for the sake of differential here, I'm going to switch over to my psychologist scribe aesthetic here. So, and then and again, I'm not a psychologist, but I do own a couch. So the perspective here is that parents are a threat to the health of children unless you intervene. If you do not intervene into the lives of families of students or children that are under your care in one way, shape, or form, then they are a threat. By default, they are a threat unless or until you come in and help them to become better people in promoting well-being for LGBTQ young people. Is that the base default assumption, that unless or until you get involved, families and parents of students should be seen as a threat or a potential threat? Again, I'm just taking what I'm being given here. This seems a little odd.
That children have. And so, that's why as part of what we're talking about today, we are going to be spending time talking about families and caregivers. When we're working with children, we are working with families.
Yes. You know what? This is going to end up being a part 2. I can only, we're halfway through their own presentation and they're still giving us build up to what they're actually going to be talking about. So I'll get another minute here to find a good stop point, and then I'll start wrapping things up.
And we really want to support them, engage them, not, avoid these hard conversations, but acknowledge that there are a lot of challenges and figure out the best way to approach this so that we can really foster and help maintain strong relationships between children and families, because there's such a huge protective factor.
You know what might maintain those strong, the family themselves. This is going to be the overarching question for all of this. What business is it of yours? And so far we've gotten as far as 10-year-olds. Okay, this seems like a good place to stop. Maybe permanently, I don't know. If I do anything else on this, it's going to be a part 2 at some point in the next few days to try to wrap it up. But we got through approximately half of the base presentation. I'll take a minute here to see what you guys have to say, and then I'm going to take a break from this because I am all sorts of just confused and frustrated and a little suspicious, but advocatus. So every time he tells a 3-year-old the proper way to lube up, is he saving their life? God, I really don't want to know what goes beyond just, hey, what do you think about soccer? You're ridiculous lunatic. I defy anyone to hold a 3-year-old's attention for more than 6 minutes. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why we would be talking about children in an age that comes long before a public education. I mean, kindergarten starts at what, like 4 or 5 or something? He's going back to like 2 years old and onward. And still, I ask, of what business is it of yours? Let's see. What else? I am stunned, says JB. I mean, on what level do they want me to dislike them? Well, it's, and again, this is just right here. Let me just put this on here for the sake of being clear. It's just this sensation that they know they are treading into very dangerous territory, very uncomfortable, and perhaps not their. It's as though in the way that they're approaching this subject matter and the way they're kind of dancing around the obvious discomfort that this might, have between parents and students and teachers, that they know that they are trespassers. They know that they are stepping on a line they shouldn't, or is not their realm, or not their responsibility. And yet they need to keep trying to sell it and soften it and make it seem like, oh, we're just talking about like who likes soccer. Like, really? But again, why? Why do you need to discuss gender roles or gender stereotypes with 3-year-olds or first graders? Let's say I'll give the benefit of the doubt and say they've actually entered the full-on public education system. Why do first graders need to discuss in depth or in some sort of like philosophical sense the quote unquote truth of gender roles? And especially, and again, I cannot emphasize this enough, anybody who adheres to the idea of sex being assigned at birth, immediately anything else they say after that becomes entirely suspect to me. Okay, that just does not wash with reality. That tells me somebody is forcefully and intentionally stepping themselves outside of rational thought and observable reality. And if that is the basis on which that they are proceeding forward in their education of students, one only can guess what else they're hedging on as far as truth and reality. But maybe I've gone a bit too far. A couple more things here, and then let's see. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. My voice is starting to fail me. I got my water jug here, but it's just one of those things. Well, it's actually a big mug. It's a big mug my parents got for me when they went to Europe. They went to Amsterdam several years ago, and they brought me back this big mug that says Amsterdam on it. It's got all this stuff on it. It's perfect. It's perfect for just having a big thing of water. I'm trying to avoid thinking any more about this right now. I'm focusing on my mug. Like, I don't want to talk about this anymore because it feels so uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable conversation. I have to sit in my discomfort. What am I doing? Sit in your discomfort, scribe. It's a beneficial thing. Sit in your discomfort. You're learning. That means you're learning something. You're having your realities challenged. Yes, that's what it is. Sit in my discomfort. Okay. Well, anyway, if you're sitting in your discomfort, please don't. Get up, move around, do something fun today. It's Sunday. It's still the end of the weekend. There's still a few hours left until most of us have to think about going back to the old grindstone. Let's see. Anything else I want to promote? Oh, yeah. My Discord server. Did you know I have a Discord server? I have a Discord server. Did you know that from time to time I talk about my Discord server? I do. You know also that from time to time I forget to generate a link to the Discord server for a particular stream until the last second. It's true. And I did that just now. And here it is. There's the link to the Discord server. If you'd like to join the Discord server, you just have to do a couple of things. First, you have to click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you are not a bot and are indeed a watcher, a viewer, an audience member of this stream. And today's secret word is waterfall. Just say, hello, waterfall, and I'll know that you actually watched this stream. And then you can become a member of the Discord server to talk about all types of things, either the shows or anything that occurs to you, because it's essentially an open forum, save for some little categories in there. Beyond that, let's see. I already did a shout out to Morbid Curiosity if you like true crime. What's other shout out? Ranting Monkey. Do you know about Ranting Monkey? If you don't know about Ranting Monkey, you should check out The Ranting Monkey on YouTube. He does live streams just like me, and he's funny. And he also does them at the completely opposite end of the solar cycle than myself, so I rarely get to see him anymore or talk to him. But when I do, it's fun because we're good friends. And also, Fam 2 Cents, or Satsu 2 Cents, on YouTube. He's transitioned into some interesting content lately. It's very niche, but apparently he's getting a really good response to it. It's Supermarket Simulator or something, and he does reviews of mods for the game Supermarket Simulator. I think it's called Supermarket Simulator, something like that. I cannot tell you how interesting it is. Niche communities amongst video games and such. I shouldn't be surprised, but sometimes I still am a little surprised. Either way, everyone, I'm going to call it here. I will probably do a part 2. Starting at this frame, this slide, family rejection, which of course is what I suppose our happy social worker warriors here are doing to prevent in some way getting involved in family disputes or students' lives or something. I don't know. I can't wait to find out. Anyway, I will do a part 2. Can't tell you when exactly. Might be Monday, might be Tuesday, might be Wednesday. It all depends on when I get around to it or when time and work allow. If you'd like to find out when I'll be doing such a thing, I will advertise such on the Discord, but also on Twitter. You can find me on, X, scribe_light. Do I have something that has that on there? Sure, here you go. There at the bottom of the corner there, if you don't know, it's scribe_light on X. You can follow me on there. when X allows me to see or be seen in the tweets that I put out there. But I will advertise when I'll be doing a follow-up to this. It'll probably be an ambush stream. I'll try to give some notice ahead of time, but it might be out of the blue. Otherwise, with that, everybody, moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved in their waterfalls and otherwise that you guys have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, your guys' generosity is just, blowing my mind the last few days, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Also, I don't know if I mentioned, actually, I know I didn't mention because it just happened on Thursday night. I relayed to my father all of your guys' well wishes, both that night during the stream and also in the days since, and he's very much appreciative. I think he was a little taken aback. My father doesn't, I don't know how often he actually watches my shows or understands the community that's been built up here, but when I told him about it, he seemed a little surprised in a good way. But thank you guys so much for your well wishes. He's doing well. He'll be continuing with his checkups and his tests and all the blood draws and everything, and it's all looking good so far. All signs are pointing to good. Which I'm very happy for my families, and I appreciate everybody's well wishes. And I don't mean this in a dismissive way. I honestly do appreciate your thoughts and prayers. Unlike some other instances where they might dismiss them, I do really appreciate your thoughts and prayers. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all enjoyed the show. If you leave a like on the way out, I'd appreciate it, or a dislike. I can appreciate how maybe this subject matter isn't very fun, but I feel like for the sake of my own edification, maybe somebody else's, it's useful. And otherwise, everyone, as I stumble my way through the exit here, I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.